When I opened my eyes, I was back in our penthouse apartment 5 years ago. The divorce papers lay on the marble counter exactly as they had before, the moment that ruined my life in my previous timeline. But this time I smiled as I signed them. My husband's face twisted in confusion at my calm demeanor, clearly expecting tears and begging like last time. He had no idea that I knew his company would crash in exactly 847 days, or that his mistress would leave him penniless and suicidal. Armed with knowledge of the future, I was ready. Every market crash, every tech boom, every cryptocurrency surge, I knew them all. While my ex-husband's empire crumbled, I built my own. Within 2 years, I transformed from his trophy wife into one of the most powerful women in the financial world. My net worth eclipsed his former fortune tenfold, but my perfect revenge was shattered when Marcus Chen, my ex-husband's former business partner, started asking questions he shouldn't know to ask. The way he watched me, the things he hinted at about my past life, it was impossible, yet he knew. As I dug deeper into Marcus's past, I discovered a pattern of wealthy women who died mysterious death, all connected to him. Now I realized that my own death in my previous life wasn't an accident, and Marcus's obsession with me threatens everything I've built. Before we start this video, buckle up, get ready, and subscribe for a special surprise tomorrow. I still remember the exact moment I died, the wind whipping through my hair, the glint of city lights far below, and his face twisted with greed as he pushed me from the 45th floor of Chen Industries. That should have been the end of my story, but instead, it became my beginning. When I opened my eyes, I found myself staring at the familiar crown molding of our penthouse bedroom ceiling. The Egyptian cotton sheets felt cool against my skin, and through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the same skyline that had been my last view. Only this time, I was safe in bed, not plummeting to my death. The date on my phone read May 15, 2020, 5 years before my death, 5 years before I discovered the truth about everything. My heart raced as I sat up, taking in the expensive furnishings that had once been my pride and joy. Now they felt like props in a play I'd already performed. Right on cue, the bedroom door opened. James walked in, his tailored suit immaculate as always, holding a stack of papers I knew all too well. The divorce papers that had destroyed me in my previous life. "Sarah," he said, his voice cold and professional, "I think we both know this isn't working anymore. My lawyer drew these up. I'd appreciate it if you could sign them quickly and quietly." In my first life, I had sobbed, begged, promised to be a better wife. I had loved him so desperately then, blind to what he really was. I had fought the divorce for months, only giving in when he threatened to expose my family's financial troubles to the press. By then, most of our shared assets were mysteriously depleted, leaving me with barely enough to rent a small apartment. This time I smiled. I could see the surprise in his eyes as I took the papers without protest. "You're right, James. This isn't working anymore." I walked to his prized mahogany desk, the one he'd bragged cost more than most people's cars, and picked up his favorite Mont Blanc pen. The same pen he'd use in 2 years to sign away his company's future to Marcus Chen, not knowing it would lead to his bankruptcy. "Don't you want your lawyer to look these over first?" he asked, thrown by my cooperation. I shook my head, already scanning the documents. They were exactly as I remembered, heavily skewed in his favor, designed to leave me with as little as possible. "That won't be necessary. I trust you've been fair." The lie tasted sweet on my tongue. I knew every clause, every trap, every hidden meaning in these papers. I also knew exactly how to use them to my advantage this time around. James shifted uncomfortably, probably wondering what had happened to his emotional, dependent wife. "Sarah, if this is some kind of strategy..." "No strategy," I interrupted, signing my name with a flourish. "I want what you want, a clean break. We both deserve to be happy, don't we?" His eyes narrowed slightly. In my previous life, I'd never stood up to him, never shown any sign of independence. I could practically see the wheels turning in his head, trying to figure out what game I was playing. If only he knew. I handed him back the papers, our fingers brushing briefly. Once, that small contact would have sent electricity through my body. Now I felt nothing but satisfaction. "I'll have my things out by the end of the week." "You're taking this better than I expected," he said, studying my face. I gathered my phone and laptop, already mentally reviewing the stock market changes that would make me millions in the coming months. Let's just say I had a wake-up call. Sometimes the end of one thing is exactly what you need to begin something better. He probably thought I was talking about some self-help book or therapy session. He had no idea I was talking about my own death, about watching his world crumble while mine rose from the ashes. As I walked past him toward the door, he called out, "Sarah? What changed?" I turned back, taking one last look at the man who had once been my everything. In 2 years, he would lose everything trying to outmaneuver Marcus Chen. In 3 years, he would attempt suicide in a cheap motel room. In 4 years, he would beg me to take him back, not knowing I was weeks away from my death. I just finally saw things clearly, I said. Goodbye, James. I left him standing there, surrounded by his expensive furniture and priceless art, none of which he would own in a few years' time. My high heels clicked against the marble floors as I walked to the elevator, already pulling up my banking app. I had exactly $127,000 in my private account, something James didn't know about. It wasn't much by our social circle standards, but it was enough to start with. Bitcoin would hit its peak in exactly 7 months. Tesla's stock would triple. A small tech startup called Neuralink would revolutionize the medical industry. This time I would be ready. This time I would build my own empire while watching his burn, and this time I would be careful enough to see Marcus Chen coming before he could push me off that building. The elevator doors closed on my old life, and I smiled. Time to begin again. I spent the next week methodically moving out of the penthouse, carefully selecting items I knew would appreciate in value. The Japanese prints James thought were reproductions but were actually worth millions. The rare first edition books his grandfather had left him. Small, valuable things he wouldn't miss until it was too late. I rented a modest but secure apartment in a building I knew would remain stable through the coming market fluctuations. My first order of business was setting up multiple offshore accounts, something I'd learned about too late in my previous life. Then I began making careful, strategic investments, small amounts at first, spread across different platforms and markets. I knew exactly which cryptocurrencies would boom and which would bust. I knew which tech startups would revolutionize their industries and which would fade into obscurity. More importantly, I knew the exact timing of each rise and fall. The divorce became final in record time, thanks to my cooperation. James's lawyer seemed suspicious of my easy acceptance, but there was nothing they could do about it. I signed away my rights to most of our shared assets, knowing they would soon be worthless anyway. Within a month, my initial investments had tripled. I kept my profits quiet, diversifying into real estate I knew would skyrocket in value. Every move was calculated, based on my knowledge of the future, but I was careful not to make any trades too large or too pressing. I couldn't afford to draw attention, not yet. The first time I ran into Marcus Chen was at a charity gala 2 months after the divorce. In my previous life, I'd avoided these events after James left me. This time, I made sure to be there, wearing a dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary. I saw him before he saw me, standing near the bar with that predatory smile I now knew too well. Marcus Chen, the man who would destroy my husband's company and end my life. He was talking to a blonde woman I recognized with a jolt, Jessica Palmer. In my previous life, she had died in a suspicious boating accident 6 months from now. I moved closer, pretending to examine a nearby ice sculpture while listening to their conversation. Marcus was explaining some investment opportunity, using the same smooth tone he'd used when convincing me to meet him on that fatal night at his office. Sarah? His voice cut through my thoughts. I turned to find him watching me with those calculating eyes. I heard about you and James. I'm sorry things didn't work out. In my previous life, this moment had never happened. I'd been too ashamed to attend events like this after the divorce. I wondered how different things might have been if I'd known then what I knew now. Don't be sorry, I said, accepting the champagne he offered. It was the best decision I could have made. He raised an eyebrow. Really? That's not what James seems to think. He's been quite confused by your behavior. They were still partners at this point, before Marcus's hostile takeover would tear their friendship apart. I took a sip of champagne, buying time to choose my words carefully. Sometimes people only see what they expect to see, I said. James expected a broken-hearted ex-wife, so he's confused by anything else. Marcus studied me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I forced myself to meet his gaze steadily, remembering how his eyes had looked in those final moments on the roof. You've changed, he said finally. There's something different about you. I felt a flicker of alarm but kept my expression neutral. Divorce will do that to a person. No, he said slowly. It's something else. You remind me of someone I knew. She changed suddenly too, right before. He didn't finish the sentence, but a chill ran down my spine. How many other women had he murdered? How many times had he noticed this same change in them? I needed to be more careful. I'd been so focused on using my knowledge of the future that I hadn't considered how it might make me appear to others, especially to someone like Marcus, who seemed to have a sixth sense for identifying his victims. If you'll excuse me, I said, setting down my glass. I see someone I need to speak with. I could feel his eyes on my back as I walked away. I'd forgotten how perceptive he was, how quickly he could spot anything unusual. I would need to be more subtle, more strategic in how I used my knowledge. That night, I went home and reviewed everything I knew about Marcus Chen. In my previous life, I'd only learned the truth about him in my final moment. Now I had a chance to understand my enemy before he understood me. I created a detailed timeline of his known business dealings, looking for patterns I might have missed before. I noted every suspicious death connected to him, every sudden market shift that had benefited his company. The next morning, I made an anonymous call to Jessica Palmer's office, warning her about safety issues with her yacht. I couldn't save everyone, but I could try to change some small parts of the future. As I worked, I kept thinking about the way Marcus had looked at me at the gala. He'd recognized something in me, something that had put me on his radar far earlier than in my previous life. I needed to move fast, build my resources and power base before he could act, but I also needed to be smarter this time. No obvious moves, no clear patterns he could trace. The game had begun earlier than I'd planned, but this time I knew the rules. This time I wouldn't be just another wealthy woman who mysteriously disappeared. This time I would be ready for him. The next 3 months passed in a carefully orchestrated dance of strategic moves and calculated risk. I bought significant stakes in 5 tech startups I knew would revolutionize their industries within the year. My offshore accounts swelled with cryptocurrency investments timed perfectly with market surges. Each transaction was structured through different shell companies and intermediaries, making it nearly impossible to trace them back to me. The business world began to whisper about a mysterious new player in the market, someone who seemed to have an uncanny ability to predict trends and market shift. I kept my identity hidden, operating through layers of corporations and trusted proxies I remembered from my previous life. I named my investment firm Phoenix Capital, a private joke only I could appreciate. My office occupied the entire 30th floor of a sleek downtown building with sweeping views of the city. Not as high as the Chen Industries building where I died, but high enough to remind me every day of what I was fighting for. The first major tech IPO I'd been waiting for hit the market exactly as I remembered. While other investors hesitated, I moved aggressively, acquiring a controlling interest within hours. By the end of the week, the stock had tripled in value. My net worth crossed the billion-dollar mark, though I kept that fact carefully hidden from public records. James noticed, of course. How could he not when my name started appearing in the same business circles he frequented? I ran into him at an investment conference where he was still pitching the same doomed strategies that would eventually destroy his company. "I had no idea you were interested in business," he said, trying to sound casual but unable to hide his confusion. "This is quite a change from the woman who used to let me handle all the finances." I smiled, remembering how he'd used that financial control to manipulate me in our marriage. "People can surprise you, James. Speaking of surprises, how are things with Marcus?" His face tightened slightly. "Right on schedule. The first cracks in their partnership were starting to show." "Everything's fine. Why do you ask?" "Just curious. I heard some interesting rumors about his recent acquisition. The timing seemed unusual." I watched him process this, saw the first seeds of doubt I'd planted take root. In my previous life, James had trusted Marcus blindly until it was too late. This time I could at least try to warn him, even if he wouldn't understand the warning until it was too late. My next move was to establish the connections I knew would become crucial later. I hired Linda Chen, Marcus's estranged sister, as my chief financial officer. In my previous life, she'd tried to warn me about her brother just days before my death. This time, I wanted her firmly in my corner from the beginning. Linda proved to be as brilliant as I remembered, though she was initially suspicious of my interest in hiring her. "Why me?" she asked during our first meeting. "There are dozens of CFOs more qualified." "Because you understand something crucial," I told her. "You know that sometimes the biggest threats come from those closest to us." She stared at me for a long moment before nodding slowly. I saw recognition in her eyes, the same wariness of her brother that had drawn me to her in my previous life. My empire grew rapidly, but I was careful to maintain a lower profile than my wealth might have warranted. I declined interviews, avoided photographers, and operated primarily through intermediaries. The less attention I drew, the better. But Marcus Chen wasn't so easily fooled. I noticed his companies beginning to take positions opposite my investments. Where I bought, he sold. When I showed interest in a startup, he would swoop in with a competing offer. The pattern was too precise to be coincidence. He was watching me, studying my moves with the same predatory intensity I remembered from our fatal final meeting. I caught him studying me at a tech conference in Singapore. I was there to close a deal with an AI company I knew would revolutionize machine learning. He was there ostensibly for a panel discussion on emerging markets. "Impressive work you've been doing," he said, cornering me at the hotel bar. "Your investment strategies show remarkable foresight." The way he emphasized foresight made my skin crawl. "Just good research and better timing." "Timing?" he repeated, swirling his whiskey. "Yes, timing is everything, isn't it? Like knowing exactly when to buy crypto before a surge, or which startups will succeed before they've even launched." My heart rate increased, but I kept my expression neutral. Are you accusing me of something, Marcus? Not at all. I'm just fascinated by patterns, by people who seem to know things they shouldn't possibly know. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. By women who change suddenly, becoming different people overnight. I forced myself to meet his gaze steadily. People change all the time. Sometimes it just takes the right motivation. Like a divorce? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Or perhaps something more significant. Before I could respond, Linda appeared at my elbow. Sarah, our conference call with Tokyo is in 5 minutes. I excused myself, feeling Marcus's eyes follow me across the lobby. Linda waited until we were safely in the elevator before speaking. Be careful with him, she said quietly. He's been asking questions about you, about your sudden success. I nodded, pressing the button for our floor. I know. Has he mentioned anything specific? He's particularly interested in how you seem to anticipate market moves before they happen. And he's been looking into your past, trying to find anything unusual. This was happening faster than in my previous life. My success had drawn his attention earlier, made him suspicious sooner. I needed to accelerate my plans. Back in my hotel suite, I pulled up the files I'd been gathering on Marcus. Newspaper articles about suspicious death, financial records showing irregular patterns, everything I could find that might help me understand his methods. A pattern emerged that I hadn't noticed in my previous life. Every woman he'd targeted had shown sudden, unexplained success. They'd made mysterious but profitable business decisions, only to die in accidents shortly after attracting his attention. Had they been like me? Reborn with knowledge of the future? Had Marcus somehow recognized that in them, just as he was recognizing it in me now? The thought was terrifying, but it also gave me hope. If others had experienced what I had, perhaps they'd left clues, diving deeper into the histories of Marcus's suspected victims. Jessica Palmer, whose yacht accident I'd managed to prevent, had made a series of brilliant investments just before her planned accident. Elena Rodriguez had transformed her failing company into a tech giant overnight before her car crashed. Hannah Kim had quadrupled her family's fortune in 6 months before falling from her penthouse. The patterns were identical. Women with intimate knowledge of future market movements. Women who changed overnight. Women who died before they could fully utilize that knowledge. But I had an advantage they hadn't. I knew what Marcus was. I knew how he operated. And most importantly, I knew exactly how he had killed me in my previous life. I began setting up safeguards. Every piece of evidence I gathered was stored in multiple secure locations, set to be released automatically if anything happened to me. I hired the best security team money could buy, people I remembered being trustworthy from my previous life. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "We need to talk. It's about Marcus." I stared at the message, remembering how this conversation had gone in my previous life when I'd ignored James's warnings about his partner. This time would be different. "Meet me at the Four Seasons," I replied. 1 hour. As I gathered my things to leave, Linda's voice came through my office intercom. "Sarah, Marcus Chen is here to see you." I froze, my hand halfway to my bag. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. In my previous life, we hadn't had our first direct confrontation until much later. "Tell him I'm in a meeting," I said, my mind racing through possibilities. "He says he'll wait," Linda replied, tension evident in her voice. "He says it's about James." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Marcus Chen was at my door far earlier than expected, but I couldn't show fear. I died once already. What was the worst he could do? "Send him in," I said, straightening my spine and turning to face the door. "Let's see what he wants." Marcus Chen walked into my office with the same predatory grace I remembered from my final moment. His tailored suit was identical to the one he'd worn the night he killed me, down to the platinum cufflinks that had glinted in the moonlight as he pushed me. "Sarah," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk without waiting for an invitation. "You've been avoiding me." I kept my expression neutral, though my heart was racing. "I've been busy building my company, as I'm sure you understand." His dark eyes studied me with unsettling intensity. "Yes, your meteoric rise has been quite remarkable. Almost unbelievable, really. The way you seem to know exactly which moves to make, which companies to back." "I do my research," I said, meeting his gaze steadily. "Research?" he repeated softly. "Tell me, Sarah, in your research, did you happen to look into Neurotech's latest patent applications? The ones they haven't publicly filed yet?" My blood ran cold. In my previous life, Neurotech's secret patents had revolutionized brain-computer interfaces. Their stock had skyrocketed overnight when the news broke. I'd invested heavily in them last week, knowing what was coming, but the patents wouldn't be filed for another month. "I'm not sure what you mean," I said carefully. Marcus leaned forward, his smile sharpening. "I think you do. Just like I think you knew about the cryptocurrency surge last month before it happened. Just like you knew which startups would succeed before they even launched." I kept my face impassive, but my mind was racing. How much did he know? How much had he pieced together? "You're not the first, you know," he continued, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "I've met others like you, women who suddenly became different people overnight. Women who knew things they couldn't possibly know. The security button was under my desk within easy reach, but I remembered how that had ended last time. Instead, I pressed the intercom. Linda, could you bring in the Thompson files? It was our coded signal for danger. Within moments, I heard my security team's footsteps in the hallway. Marcus's smile widened. Careful, Sarah. Your security team can't protect you from what's coming. Ask Elena Rodriguez, ask Hannah Kim. Oh wait, you can't. They're dead. Are you threatening me, Marcus? Not at all. I'm offering you a partnership. Your knowledge of the future combined with my resources, we could be unstoppable. The same offer he'd made me in my previous life right before he killed me. I'd refused then and paid with my life. I'll think about it, I said, buying time. He stood smoothly, buttoning his jacket. Don't think too long. Time has a way of running out unexpectedly. After he left, I canceled my meeting with James and initiated emergency protocols I'd prepared for this moment. Within hours, my most sensitive files were relocated, my security doubled, and my contingency plans activated. Linda found me still in my office at midnight, reviewing security footage. He knows something, she said, setting a cup of coffee on my desk. My brother has always been obsessed with power, but this is different. He's fixated on you. I thought about telling her the truth. About my death. About being reborn. About knowing exactly what her brother was capable of. But the words stuck in my throat. Sarah, she said softly. Whatever's going on, whatever you're involved in, let me help. I know what Marcus is capable of. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your ex-husband is about to make a terrible mistake. Pier 17, midnight. Come alone if you want to save him. I showed Linda the message. It's a trap, she said immediately. Of course it is, I agreed. But I need to know what game Marcus is playing. I hadn't saved James in my previous life. I'd been too hurt, too angry to warn him about Marcus's betrayal. His suicide attempt had haunted me until my own death. If you're going, you're not going alone, Linda insisted. I agreed to let her coordinate with security, but I knew I would have to face Marcus eventually. The question was whether I could change the outcome this time. Pier 17 was deserted when I arrived, the fog rolling in from the bay obscuring the warehouses. My security team was hidden in position, but I still felt exposed as I walked toward the lone figure standing at the edge of the pier. It wasn't Marcus, it was James. Sarah? He looked surprised to see me. What are you doing here? I got a message saying you were in trouble, I said, keeping my distance. From Marcus. His face changed, something like fear flickering in his eyes. He knows, doesn't he, about the merger? I hadn't known about the merger in my previous life until it was too late. This was new information. What merger, James? Marcus approached me about merging our companies. The terms seemed too good to be true. I was going to sign tonight, but then I started noticing discrepancies in the paperwork. The pieces clicked into place. In my previous life, James had signed those papers. The merger had been the first step in Marcus's hostile takeover, the beginning of James's downfall. Don't sign anything, I said urgently. Marcus isn't who you think he is. Look into Elena Rodriguez, Hannah Kim. Look into their death. How do you know about them? Marcus's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him emerging from the shadows, a gun trained steadily at my chest. The same way I know you're going to try to kill me, I said calmly. The same way I know you've killed others like me. James looked between us, confusion evident on his face. What's going on? Sarah here has a remarkable gift, Marcus said, his voice almost admiring. She knows the future, just like the others did. But unlike them, she's been more careful, more strategic. You're insane, James started to say, but Marcus cut him off. Tell him, Sarah. Tell him how you knew exactly which investments to make. Tell him why you signed those divorce papers so easily. You knew what was coming, didn't you? I heard my security team moving into position, but I knew they wouldn't reach us in time, just like last time. You want to know the truth? I said, stepping forward. I died. You killed me. And when I came back, I promised myself I wouldn't let you destroy any more lives. Marcus's smile widened. Finally, honesty. But you're wrong about one thing, Sarah. I didn't kill you. Not yet. The gunshot echoed across the water, but it wasn't Marcus who fired. Linda stood at the entrance to the pier, her own weapon trained on her brother. Drop it, Marcus. The moment of distraction was all my security team needed. They swarmed the pier, disarming Marcus and securing him. You can't prove anything, Marcus snarled as they handcuffed him. Actually, I can, I said, pulling out my phone. I've been gathering evidence since I came back. Everything you did to Elena, to Hannah, to all of them. It's all documented and ready to be released to every major news outlet. James stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Sarah, what is all this? I looked at my ex-husband, seeing the confusion and fear in his eyes. It's a long story, James. But the short version is I just saved your life, both of your lives. As the police arrived and Marcus was taken away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulder. I had changed the future. I had saved James from his fate, stopped Marcus from killing again, and most importantly, I had drive away with Marcus in the back. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The look in his eyes as they led him away wasn't defeat. It was anticipation. Linda approached me as the pier cleared. "We need to talk about what happened here tonight, about what you said about dying and coming back." I nodded, knowing it was time for the truth. "Yes, we do. But not here. There's someone else we need to find first." "Who?" "The other survivors," I said. "The ones who came back but couldn't stop him in time. They're out there, and they might know something we don't." The city lights reflected off the bay, reminding me of that fatal night. But this time, I was alive. This time, I had won. For now, Marcus's arrest should have been the end of it. But as I sat in my office the next morning, watching the news coverage of his arrest splashed across every financial network, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Linda had spent hours debriefing with the police, carefully laying out the evidence we'd gathered against her brother. James was cooperating too, providing details about the fraudulent merger documents. Everything was proceeding exactly as it should. Yet Marcus's final smile haunted me. He'd looked too confident for someone facing multiple murder charges. My phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. "We need to meet. I know what happened to you. Velvet Room, 2 p.m. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the delete button. It could be a trap, someone working with Marcus. But if there were others like me, others who had come back, I needed to know. "I'm heading out for a meeting," I told Linda as I passed her office. "Have security follow at a distance." The Velvet Room was an upscale bar in the financial district, the kind of place where deals were made over $100 cocktail. At 2 p.m. it was nearly empty, except for a woman sitting alone at a corner table. I recognized her immediately, though I'd only seen her in newspaper photographs. Elena Rodriguez, one of Marcus's victims, the woman who should have died 6 months ago in a car crash. "You saved my life," she said as I sat down. "That anonymous tip about my brake lines being tampered with, that was you, wasn't it?" I nodded, studying her face. She looked different from her photos, harder somehow, like someone who had seen too much. "How did you know?" "Because I did the same thing in my second life, tried to save others, but I couldn't save myself." She took a sip of her drink. "This is my third time around." My blood ran cold. "Third? You mean you've died twice?" "Marcus killed me both times. Different methods, but same result. Each time I came back, I tried something different. First time, I went to the police. They found nothing. Second time, I tried to expose his business dealings. He made it look like a suicide." I leaned forward. "But how is this possible? Why do we come back?" "I don't know. But we're not the only one. There's a pattern. Successful women who somehow cross paths with Marcus Chen. Women who die mysteriously and then return with knowledge of the future." She pulled out a notebook. "I've tracked 7 of us so far." She showed me a list of names. Some I recognized from my research, others were new to me. "Have you contacted them?" "The ones I could find. Most don't remember their previous lives. Or if they do, they're too scared to talk about it. But a few remember everything, just like us." "And Marcus? Does he know about all of this?" Elena's face darkened. "He doesn't just know. He hunts us. Something about us coming back attracts his attention. He can sense it somehow, the change in us. And once he identifies us, he doesn't stop until we're dead. But he's in jail now," I pointed out. "We have evidence." She laughed bitterly. "Evidence doesn't matter. In my second life, I had video footage of him tampering with my car. It mysteriously disappeared from police custody. The detective investigating the case had a fatal heart attack the next day." A chill ran down my spine. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Marcus Chen isn't working alone. There's something bigger going on here, something none of us understood in our previous lives." Before she could elaborate, my phone buzzed with an urgent text from Linda. "Turn on the news now." I pulled up a news app on my phone, Elena leaning in to watch. The headline made my heart stop. "Tech billionaire Marcus Chen released on bail. All charges dropped due to lack of evidence." "That's I whispered. "We had documents, witnesses." "It's starting again," Elena said grimly. "Just like before. The evidence disappears, the witnesses change their stories, and Marcus walks free." My phone rang. "James." "Sarah, something's wrong. The merger documents I gave the police, they're gone. And the detective just called to tell me they found irregularities in my statement." I ended the call, my mind racing. "We need to move fast. If Marcus is free, he'll come for both of us," Elena finished. "But this time, we have something we didn't have before." "What's that?" "Each other, and all the knowledge from our combined past lives." I nodded slowly, a plan forming in my mind. "We need to find the others, all of them. If we pool our knowledge, it might be enough to finally stop him." Elena agreed. "But we have to be careful. Marcus isn't the only one watching us." "What do you mean?" She glanced around the bar before lowering her voice. "In my last life, right before I died, I discovered something. Records of a secret organization, people studying women like us. They called it Project Phoenix. The name of my investment firm. I'd chosen it as a private joke, but now it felt like more than coincidence. Marcus was working with them," Elena continued. "Or maybe for them. They were interested in people who could come back, who had knowledge of the future. But their real goal..." She never finished the sentence. sentence. The window behind us exploded in a shower of glass. Elena's body jerked, a red stain spreading across her chest. A sniper. I dove for cover as more shots rang out. My security team burst into action, but I knew it was too late for Elena. Again, as chaos erupted in the bar, I clutched Elena's notebook to my chest. Her last gift knowledge that might finally help us understand what we were dealing with. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Welcome to the game, Sarah. Ready for round 2? I looked at Elena's lifeless body, at the list of names in her notebook. 7 women who had come back. 7 women who might hold pieces of the puzzle. Marcus might have won this round, but the game wasn't over. This time, I wasn't fighting alone. Somewhere out there were others like me, women who had died and returned, each carrying a piece of the truth. I just had to find them before Marcus did, and this time I had to make sure Elena's death wasn't in vain. The police arrived within minutes, but I already knew how this would play out. The evidence would disappear. The witnesses would change their stories, just like before. But this time was different. This time I had Elena's notebook, filled with names and dates and pieces of a puzzle I was only beginning to understand. As the paramedics covered Elena's body, I made a silent promise. I would find the others. I would uncover the truth about Project Phoenix, and this time, Marcus Chen wouldn't be the only one hunting. The game had changed, and so had the players. Now I just had to figure out the rules before it was too late. Again, Elena's notebook became my lifeline in the days following her death. I pored over it in my secure penthouse, protected by doubled security and newly installed bulletproof glass. Her meticulous notes revealed a pattern I'd missed in my previous life. The connections between Marcus's victims went beyond just being successful women. Hannah Kim had developed an algorithm that could predict market crashes with uncanny accuracy. Jessica Palmer had filed patents for technology that seemed decades ahead of its time. Each woman had displayed impossible knowledge of the future before their death. The 7th name on Elena's list caught my attention: Dr. Rachel Morris. Unlike the others, there was no record of her death. According to Elena's notes, she had vanished 3 years ago while researching temporal mechanics at a classified facility. Linda knocked on my office door, interrupting my research. "The police just called. They're officially closing Elena's case. Random gang violence, apparently." I barely looked up from the notebook. "Of course they are. Did you find anything on Project Phoenix?" "Nothing official. But I did find something interesting in Marcus's old financial record. Monthly payments to a research facility in Nevada. The same facility where Dr. Morrison worked before she disappeared." Before I could respond, my secure phone rang. "James." "Sarah, we need to talk." Marcus came to see me. My heart raced. What did he want? "He knows about Elena. About all of it. He said to tell you that time is running out." "Sarah, what's really going on?" I closed my eyes, remembering how Marcus had used James against me in my previous life. "Meet me at my office. Bring everything you have on the merger, especially anything mentioning Project Phoenix." When I hung up, Linda was watching me with concern. "You're going to tell him everything, aren't you?" "I have to. Marcus is already using him as a pawn. At least this way, James has a chance." My security team swept James for bugs before letting him into my office. He looked haggard, his usual polished appearance showing, he said as soon as the door closed. "The truth this time." So I told him about my death in the future, about coming back, about Elena and the others, about Project Phoenix and the pattern we discovered. "That's impossible," he said when I finished, but his voice lacked conviction. "More impossible than my sudden business success? Than knowing exactly which investments would pay off? Think, James. How could I have known about the merger unless I'd seen it happen before?" He pulled out a file from his briefcase. "Marcus showed me these today, said I should ask you about them." The documents inside made my blood run cold. Project Phoenix reports detailing experiments in temporal displacement, test subjects who displayed knowledge of future events, and my name, listed as Subject 7. "This is dated 3 years ago," I whispered. "Before I died. Before I came back. Marcus said you were part of their program, that everything about you is a lie." I shook my head, but doubt crept in. My memories of my previous life were clear, weren't they? Or were they implanted, part of some experiment? "He's manipulating you," Linda said firmly. "This is exactly what he did to Elena in her second life. Made her doubt her own memories." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Ready to remember the truth? Storage facility 23 midnight. Come alone." "It's a trap," Linda said immediately. "Obviously," I agreed. "But it might be our only chance to find out what's really going on." James stood. "I'm coming with you." "No," I said sharply. "In my previous life, Marcus killed you when you tried to help me. I won't let that happen again." "This isn't your previous life," he countered. "And I'm not the same person who abandoned you then." Linda cleared her throat. "If you're both going, we do this smart. I have an idea." Storage facility 23 was dark when we arrived, but I knew Marcus would be watching. James and I approached the main entrance while Linda's team moved into position. Last chance to back out, I told James. He squeezed my hand. We both need answers. The storage unit was open, light spilling out into the darkness. Inside, a familiar figure waited. Dr. Morris, I said, recognizing her from Elena's photo. She looked exactly as she had in the photograph, down to the white lab coat. Hello, Sarah. Or should I say, Subject 7. What is this? James demanded. What's Project Phoenix? A breakthrough in human consciousness, she replied. The ability to transfer memories through time, but something went wrong. The subjects began creating their own timeline, changing events they shouldn't have been able to change. Elena, I said. Hannah, Jessica, we all came back because of your experiments? She shook her head. Number, you came back because that's what you were designed to do. You're not remembering a previous life, Sarah. You're accessing implanted memories created by Project Phoenix. You're lying, I said, but uncertainty gnawed at me. Am I? Think about it. How convenient that you knew exactly which investments would succeed. How perfectly everything played out until Elena disrupted the timeline. If that's true, then what is Marcus's role in all this? Quality control. Marcus's voice came from behind us, making sure the subjects don't stray too far from their designated path. James moved to shield me, but Dr. Morrison raised a hand. No need for violence. Sarah needs to remember who she really is. She pressed a button on a device in her hand. Images flooded my mind, a laboratory. Test tubes, my own face reflected in multiple monitors. You volunteered for the program, Dr. Morrison said softly. All of you did. The memories of your deaths were implanted to motivate you, to see how you would change the timeline. But Elena, I struggled to think through the fog of competing memories. She died. I saw her die. A necessary correction. She remembered too much, started asking dangerous questions, like what the program is really for. Linda's voice rang out as she stepped from the shadows, gun raised. What you're really using these women for. Dr. Morrison's face hardened. Marcus, deal with this. But Marcus didn't move. Instead, he smiled. Sorry, doctor, but Sarah's not the only one who can change the timeline. Everything happened at once. Linda's team burst in from all sides. Dr. Morrison reached for something in her coat. A shot rang out. I watched Dr. Morrison fall, her blood mixing with Elena's in my memory. Real or implanted, did it matter? The evidence was disappearing again, the truth slipping away. But as I looked at the device that had fallen from her hand, I realized something. The memories she'd triggered, they weren't complete. There were gaps, inconsistencies. She was lying, I said slowly. The implanted memory story, it's another manipulation. Marcus clapped slowly. Very good, Sarah. But figuring out the lie doesn't mean you know the truth. Then tell me, what is Project Phoenix really about? Why are we coming back? He smiled, that predatory smile I remembered from my death. That's the question, isn't it? Why do some people get second chances? Or third? What makes you special? Subject 7, I whispered, remembering the file. There were others before me, and there will be others after. Time is a circle, Sarah. We're all just playing our part. Before I could respond, he vanished. Not ran, not escaped, simply vanished, as if he'd never been there. James stared at the spot where Marcus had been. What just happened? I picked up Dr. Morrison's device, studying its complex circuitry. I think we just learned that everything we thought we knew about Project Phoenix was wrong. Linda holstered her gun. So what now? I looked at Elena's notebook, at the list of names, at the evidence that kept disappearing and reappearing in different forms. Now we find the others, I said. The real others, not the ones they want us to find, but the ones who know the truth. Because something was becoming clear. This wasn't about time travel or implanted memory. This was about something bigger, something that Marcus and Project Phoenix were trying to control. The question wasn't why we came back. The question was, what were we coming back to stop? The next morning, I gathered my team in my secure office. Linda, James, and my top security personnel sat around the conference table while I laid out what we knew. Dr. Morrison's device contained more than just memory triggers, I explained, pointing to the dismantled circuitry spread across the table. It's some kind of quantum field generator. The technology is decades ahead of anything that should exist. Linda picked up one of the components. Like the patents Jessica Palmer filed before her death. Exactly. And look at this. I pulled up Hannah Kim's algorithm on my tablet. Her market prediction software wasn't based on economic models. It was tracking quantum fluctuations in time itself. James leaned forward. Are you saying these women weren't just predicting the future? They were detecting changes in reality. I pulled out Elena's notebook. Each of us noticed something wrong with the world after we came back. Small inconsistencies that didn't match our memory. Like Marcus vanishing, Linda said quietly. Or evidence disappearing from police custody, James added. I nodded. Project Phoenix isn't creating time travelers. They're trying to control people who can naturally perceive temporal shifts. People like us. The implications were staggering. If we could naturally detect changes in the timeline, what else might we be capable of? And why was Marcus so determined to stop us? My phone buzzed with an alert from my security system. Someone was trying to access Elena's sealed files at my company. Got them. my head of security announced, typing rapidly. They're routing through servers in Nevada. The research facility, Linda said. Should we lock them out? I shook my head. Number. Let them in, but feed them the files I prepared. After Dr. Morrison's death, I'd created a set of decoy files. Let Project Phoenix think they were winning. Meanwhile, I had Elena's real research stored somewhere much safer. My phone rang an unknown number. I put it on speaker. Impressive security. Marcus's voice filled the room. But did you really think fake files would fool us? Worth a try, I replied calmly. Why don't you tell me what you're really looking for? You know what we want. The list of potentials, the ones who haven't awakened yet. I glanced at Elena's notebook. The last page contained names of women who shared our temporal sensitivity but hadn't died yet. Potential time travelers who didn't know what they were. Why are you so interested in them? Because they're dangerous, he said. Every time one of you awakens, reality becomes more unstable. Surely you've noticed. I had. The inconsistencies were getting worse. News reports changing overnight. People remembering events differently. We're not causing the instability, I argued. We can just perceive it. That's what Elena thought too. Right before she destabilized an entire timeline, the line went dead. I looked at my team's worried faces. What did he mean about Elena destabilizing a timeline? James asked. Before I could answer, Linda's laptop started beeping. Sarah, you need to see this. She turned the screen toward me. News headlines were changing rapidly. Stock markets were fluctuating wildly. Reality itself seemed... My phone buzzed with another text. Time to choose a side, Sarah. You have 1 hour before everything changes. I grabbed Elena's notebook and my coat. Linda, get the car. James, contact everyone on that list. Warn them. Where are we going? Linda asked as we rushed to the elevator. The research facility in Nevada. If Marcus is trying to force a timeline shift, that's where it'll happen. The drive to Nevada was tense. Reality flickered around us like a bad transmission. Roads changed direction. Buildings appeared and disappeared. How are you so calm? James asked from the back seat. Because I've seen this before, I realized. In my previous life, right before Marcus killed me. Reality was breaking down then too. Linda swerved to avoid a truck that materialized in front of us. What stopped it last time? I died before I found out. But Elena knew. That's why Marcus killed her first this time. My phone buzzed again. A message from one of the women on our warning list. Something's wrong. My memories are changing. More messages followed. All the potential time travelers were experiencing the same thing. Their latent abilities were activating. Marcus said we had an hour before everything changes, I said. He's forcing them to awaken all at once. Why? James asked. To overload the timeline, I realized, creates so many temporal paradoxes that reality has to reset. The research facility appeared ahead of us, a massive complex in the desert. But something was wrong. The building kept shifting, like multiple versions were trying to exist simultaneously. How do we stop this? Linda asked as we pulled up to the gate. I looked at Elena's notebook one last time. The answer had been there all along, hidden in her coded notes. We don't stop it, I said. We control it. Elena discovered that our abilities aren't just passive. We can direct the timeline shift. But Marcus said that destabilizes reality, James protested. No, fighting each other destabilizes reality. But if we work together, combine our abilities. My phone lit up with messages from the other women. They were all experiencing the same revelation. We ran into the facility, following the quantum fluctuations to their source. Marcus stood in a large chamber surrounded by humming machinery. Too late, he said as we entered. The cascade has begun. Reality rippled around us. I could see multiple timelines overlapping, different versions of history trying to assert themselves. It's not too late, I said. Elena figured it out. We're not supposed to fight the changes, we're supposed to guide them. Impossible, Marcus scoffed. The human mind can't handle that much temporal information. Not alone, I agreed. But we're not alone. I felt the others reaching out across the quantum field. All the awakened time travelers working in harmony for the first time. Marcus's eyes widened as he felt it too. What are you doing? What we were meant to do, I said. We're not accidents, Marcus. We're evolution's answer to an unstable universe. The quantum field pulsed. Reality stabilized, not by resetting, but by finding a new equilibrium. Marcus staggered. This isn't possible. Actually, it is. In fact, it's inevitable. That's what Project Phoenix really discovered, isn't it? That time itself is becoming conscious through us. The machinery around us powered down. The timeline shifts settled into a new pattern, one we could all perceive but no longer feared. What happens now? James asked. I looked at Marcus, who seemed smaller somehow, less threatening. Now we do what we were born to do. We maintain the balance. And what about him? Marcus laughed bitterly. Kill me if you want. I'll just come back. No, I said. You won't, because we'll remember. All of us. That's what you really feared, isn't it? Not that we we could change time, but that we could change you. The facility's security team arrived, led by Linda. As they took Marcus away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulder. Is it really over? James asked. I touched the quantum field gently with my mind, feeling the other time travelers doing the same across the world. No, I said, it's just beginning. The aftermath of the quantum cascade brought changes none of us expected. As reality stabilized into its new pattern, we discovered our abilities had evolved. We could now perceive multiple timelines simultaneously without losing our grip on the present. I spent the next week connecting with the other time travelers, helping them understand their newfound ability. The list in Elena's notebook had grown as more women awakened to their true nature. The quantum field is like a living thing, Hannah Kim explained during our first group meeting. She had survived in this timeline, thanks to our warning. It responds to our collective consciousness. Jessica Palmer nodded. That's why Marcus wanted to keep us isolated. Together, we're too powerful to control. Linda had converted my company's conference room into a command center of sorts. Screens displayed quantum fluctuations across the globe, each one monitored by one of us. The instabilities are decreasing, she reported. Whatever you're all doing, it's working. James watched from the corner, still struggling to understand his role in all this. What happens to the rest of us, the ones who can't perceive the changes? You already do perceive them, I explained. Everyone does on some level. That's why people have déjà vu, why they sometimes remember things differently than they happened. We're just more consciously aware of it. My phone buzzed with a message from the facility where Marcus was being held. He was asking to speak with me. Don't go, Linda warned. He's still dangerous. He's powerless now, I said. We stripped him of his ability to manipulate timelines. The holding facility was a specialized unit designed to contain temporal anomalies. Marcus sat in a quantum-shielded cell, looking older than I remembered. Come to gloat? He asked as I sat down across from him. I came to understand. You were like us once, weren't you? Before Project Phoenix corrupted you, he smiled bitterly. I was the first. The one who discovered we could perceive timeline changes, but I couldn't control it like you can. Every shift drove me a little more insane. So you tried to stop it by killing us. I tried to save reality. Every time one of you awakened, the quantum field became more unstable. I thought if I could prevent enough of you from realizing your abilities, you'd stop the evolution of consciousness itself, I finished. But that was never possible. He leaned forward. Do you understand what you've done? By stabilizing the quantum field, you've changed the fundamental nature of reality. Nothing will ever be the same. That's the point. The universe is evolving, and we're part of that evolution. And what about free will? If you can perceive and influence all possible timelines, does choice even exist anymore? I thought about James, about how differently things had turned out this time. We don't control the timelines, Marcus. We guide them. The choices are still there. We just help maintain the balance. My phone buzzed again. Linda was texting urgently about new quantum fluctuations. Duty calls? Marcus asked mockingly. Actually, I came to offer you a choice. We can help you learn to control your ability, to use them the way they were meant to be used. And if I refuse, then you stay here, cut off from the quantum field, living in a single timeline like you wanted. I left him to consider the offer, knowing he would eventually accept. The pull of the quantum field was too strong to resist forever. Back at my office, the others were gathered around Linda's monitors. What's happening? The quantum field is expanding, Hannah explained. More potential time travelers are awakening naturally now that the field is stable. Is that dangerous? Jessica shook her head. The opposite. The more of us there are, the more stable reality becomes. It's like a neural network, each consciousness adding to the whole. James cleared his throat. Sarah, there's something else you need to see. He pulled up a news article on his tablet. The headline read, Global Markets Stabilize as Quantum Consciousness Theory Gains Acceptance. The world is starting to understand, I realize. Not everything, but enough. Linda smiled. People are adapting better than we expected. Maybe they've always known on some level that reality was more fluid than we thought. My phone lit up with messages from the other time travelers. Similar stories were appearing worldwide. The quantum field was affecting everyone, just more subtly than it affected us. So what now? James asked. What's our role in this new reality? I looked at Elena's notebook, at the growing list of names. We guide, we protect, we help others understand their connection to the quantum field. And Marcus? He'll come around. The quantum field wants to be whole. That includes him. Alert flashed on Linda's screen. A minor timeline fluctuation in Tokyo needed attention. I'll handle it, Jessica said, closing her eyes to connect with the field. I watched as she gently nudged the timelines back into harmony. No more violent changes, no more deaths and rebirths, just subtle adjustments to maintain the balance. Are you happy with how things turned out? I thought about my previous life, about the fear and anger that had driven me after coming back. This isn't how I expected it to end when I signed those divorce papers. But maybe that was the point. We can't control everything. even with our abilities. We can only help things flow the way they're meant to. Linda called me over to look at new data from the quantum field. As I studied the patterns, I felt the others reaching out across the network of consciousness we'd created. Each of us different, but all connected by our ability to perceive and guide the fluid nature of reality. This wasn't the revenge I'd planned when I came back. It was something better, something bigger than any of us had imagined. The quantum field hummed with potential, with all the possible futures waiting to unfold, and we would be there to help guide them, one timeline at a time. 6 months after the quantum cascade, life had settled into a new normal. Our network of time travelers grew steadily, each new awakening strengthening the stability of the quantum field. My office had become the unofficial headquarters for what the media called temporal specialists, though we preferred Elena's original term, guide. The morning started with our usual quantum field monitoring. Hannah and Jessica were tracking minor fluctuations in Europe while Linda coordinated with our international teams. I was reviewing reports when James entered, looking troubled. "Marcus wants to see you again," he said. "He says it's urgent." I checked the quantum readings around the containment facility. No unusual activity, but something felt different. "I'll go. Keep monitoring the field." Marcus had changed during his months in containment. The manic energy was gone, replaced by something more contemplative. When I entered his cell, he was studying quantum equations on a tablet we'd provided. "I figured it out," he said without looking up. "Why some of us can perceive the changes and others can't." I sat across from him. "Tell me, it's not random. We're all connected to critical moments in the timeline, nexus points where reality could have branched significantly. Like my death?" He nodded. "But it goes deeper. Each of us represents a potential future that reality needs to remain stable. When we die, those futures become unstable. That's why we come back." I thought about Elena's research, about the patterns we'd discovered. The quantum field is using us to maintain itself. Exactly. But there's something else, something in the deep patterns I've been studying. He showed me his calculations. Reality isn't just becoming conscious, it's preparing for something. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Linda's voice was urgent. "Sarah, we have a problem. The quantum field is showing massive instabilities." I pulled up the data on my tablet. The usual gentle waves of quantum fluctuations had become jagged spikes. "What's causing it?" "Unknown, but it's affecting everyone. Even non-sensitives are reporting strange experiences. Timeline bleed is becoming visible to the general population." Marcus grabbed my arm. "It's starting. The convergence we've been preparing for." I rushed back to headquarters, where chaos had erupted. Every screen showed quantum disturbances spreading across the globe. The other guides were struggling to maintain stability. "It's like the cascade," Hannah reported, "but bigger. The timelines aren't just shifting, they're merging." Jessica pointed to a pattern in the data. "Look at this. The field isn't fighting the changes like before, it's directing them." "Toward what?" James asked. Marcus's words echoed in my mind. Reality was preparing for something. But what? Linda burst in with new readings. "The quantum disturbances are concentrating on specific locations, places with high concentrations of temporal sensitives." I studied the map she'd brought. The pattern was familiar. "These are the same locations where Marcus killed us in previous timelines." "Not just those," Hannah added. "Every place where a significant temporal event occurred. They're all activating simultaneously." The quantum field surged, stronger than anything we'd felt before. Around the world, millions of people suddenly stopped as reality rippled around them. "Everyone's feeling it now," Jessica whispered. "The field is making itself known to everyone." I closed my eyes, reaching out to the quantum consciousness we shared. The other guides were there, their minds linked through the field. But now I felt others joining, millions of minds becoming aware of the fluid nature of reality. This is what we were preparing for, I realized. Not just to guide the timelines, but to help humanity take the next step. Marcus had been right. Reality wasn't just becoming conscious, it was helping consciousness evolve. James gripped my hand as another wave of quantum energy washed over us. "What do? "We guide," I said, "like we always have. But now we're not just guiding the timelines, we're guiding everyone through this transition." The next few hours were intense, as we worked to help people understand what they were experiencing. The quantum field had broken through the barriers of perception, allowing everyone to glimpse the true nature of reality. Linda coordinated with governments and media outlets, helping prevent panic. Hannah and Jessica worked with other guides to stabilize the most volatile areas. I reached out through the field, offering reassurance to millions of minds suddenly awakening to a larger reality. In his cell, Marcus watched the readings we provided. "I was wrong," he said through our quantum link. "Trying to stop this only made it more chaotic. You were right about guiding instead of controlling." As the initial shock wore off, a new kind of order began to emerge. People weren't rejecting the quantum reality, they were embracing it. The field hummed with billions of minds learning to perceive and interact with the fluid nature of existence. "Look at these readings," Hannah said excitedly. "The field isn't just stable, it's stronger than ever. Human consciousness is actually helping maintain reality." James shook his head in wonder. All those times you came back, all those changes we fought over, they were preparing us for this. I thought about my original plan for revenge, how small it seemed now compared to what we'd actually achieved. The divorce papers that had started everything lay forgotten in a drawer somewhere, belonging to a timeline that felt like ancient history. Linda handed me new reports from around the world. People were already learning to use their connection to the quantum field in small ways. Timeline perception was becoming a natural part of human consciousness. "What happens next?" she asked. I looked at my team, at the screens showing a world transformed, at the quantum field that now connected all of humanity. "We keep guiding, we help people understand their new abilities, and we watch reality evolve." Through the quantum link, I felt Marcus's acceptance, Elena's vindication, and the hope of billions of minds awakening to a universe more wonderful and strange than any of us had imagined. This wasn't an ending. It was barely even a beginning. But as I stood there, connected to the vast web of consciousness we'd helped create, I knew we were ready for whatever came next. Reality shimmered with potential, and we were all finally awake to see it. The global awakening to quantum consciousness brought challenges none of us had anticipated. While most people adapted well to their new perception of reality, some struggled with the constant awareness of multiple timelines. Our network of guides worked around the clock to help those having difficulty. 1 month after the convergence, I sat in my office reviewing reports of timeline disturbances. Most were minor, easily corrected by local guides, but a pattern was emerging that concerned me. Linda entered with fresh data. "The quantum field is showing strange fluctuations around the research facility where they held Marcus." I pulled up the readings. The usual smooth waves of quantum energy were distorted, as if something was interfering with the field. "Has Marcus reported anything unusual?" "That's just it. He's gone." I sat up straight. "What do you mean, gone?" "The guards found his cell empty this morning. No signs of tampering with the quantum shielding, no security breaches. He just vanished." Before I could respond, Hannah burst in. "We have a problem. The quantum field is being disrupted globally. Someone's trying to force a timeline shift." The monitors around us flickered as reality wavered. Through the quantum link, I felt millions of minds reacting to the disturbance. James arrived with Jessica. "It's not just Marcus. All the Project Phoenix facilities are showing similar anomalies." I reached out through the field, trying to locate the source of the disruption. What I found shocked me. It's not Marcus causing this. It's Project Phoenix itself. The truth hit me like a physical blow. Project Phoenix hadn't been studying temporal sensitives. They'd been preparing for this moment. Marcus had been their first attempt to control the quantum field, but he'd been too unstable. When he failed, they'd moved on to other subjects. Linda pulled up classified files she'd obtained. "Look at this. Project Phoenix has facilities worldwide, all built on nexus points in previous timeline," Jessica added. "They're trying to force another convergence," I realized, "but this time, they want to control it." The quantum field surged again, stronger this time. Around the world, people staggered as reality flickered. Through our shared consciousness, I felt the panic building. "We need to stop them," Hannah said. "But how? We don't even know where Marcus is." "We know exactly where he is," I corrected. "He's trying to warn us." I focused on the quantum link, searching for Marcus's unique signature in the field. There, beneath the chaos of Project Phoenix's interference, I felt his presence. "The original facility," I said. "Where it all started. That's where we'll find answers." James insisted on coming with us. "I may not be able to perceive the quantum field like you can, but I understand Project Phoenix's technology." The drive to Nevada was tense. Reality continued to waver as Project Phoenix pushed against the natural flow of the quantum field. Other guides worldwide worked to maintain stability, but I could feel the strain on the network. The facility looked abandoned when we arrived, but the quantum readings were off the scale. Inside, we found Marcus in the main laboratory, surrounded by humming equipment. "Took you long enough," he said without looking up from the controls. "They're trying to force a reset, wipe out the natural evolution of quantum consciousness, and replace it with their controlled version." "Who is they?" Linda demanded. "The ones who really run Project Phoenix. The ones who've been manipulating timeline shifts for decades." He gestured to a wall of monitors showing familiar faces. "Look familiar?" I recognized them immediately. Government officials, corporate leaders, people in positions of power across multiple timelines. They're temporal sensitives too. "The original ones," Marcus confirmed. "They've been using their abilities to maintain control across all timelines. When natural temporal sensitives started emerging, they saw it as a threat to their power." The quantum field pulsed violently. Through our link, I felt the strain on the global network of consciousness. Project Phoenix's attempt to force a reset was tearing at the fabric of reality itself. "How do we stop them?" Hannah asked. Marcus smiled grimly. "We don't. We let them try to reset everything, but this time we use their own nexus points against them." I understood immediately. The facilities they built on temporal convergence points, we can use them to strengthen the natural quantum field instead of fighting it. Exactly. But it has to be synchronized perfectly. One mistake and reality shatters completely. Linda was already coordinating with other guides worldwide. Jessica and Hannah linked minds through the quantum field, preparing to direct the energy. James worked with Marcus to adjust the facility's equipment. I reached out to the global network of consciousness, feeling billions of minds connected through the quantum field. Everyone needs to be ready. When the reset comes, don't fight it. Flow with it. Project Phoenix made their move. Reality buckled as they attempted to force a timeline reset, but we were ready. Through the quantum link, I felt other guides activating the nexus points at Project Phoenix facilities worldwide. The energy they tried to use for control flowed instead into the natural quantum field, strengthening the connection between all consciousness. The reset wave hit like a tsunami of possibility. For a moment, I perceived all timelines simultaneously, every choice, every outcome, every potential reality. Through our shared consciousness, everyone on Earth experienced the same revelation. When reality stabilized, it wasn't to Project Phoenix's controlled version or even to our previous state. It was something entirely new. The quantum field had evolved beyond anyone's ability to control it. Marcus laughed at the readings. They tried to force evolution backwards and ended up accelerating it instead. The monitors showed Project Phoenix leadership in chaos as they realized their plan had backfired. Their attempt to reset reality had only strengthened humanity's connection to the quantum field. Linda's phone buzzed with updates from around the world. People weren't just perceiving multiple timelines anymore, they were learning to move between them consciously. The barriers between possibility and reality were dissolving. What happens now? James asked, looking at the shifting quantum readings. I felt the answer through the field. Reality wasn't something to be controlled or even guided anymore. It was a conscious participant in its own evolution, and we were all part of that conscious. Marcus stood beside me, watching the quantum field stabilize into its new pattern. Still want to kill me for what I did in other timelines? I smiled. Those timelines led us here. Every choice, every death, every rebirth was part of the pattern. Through our shared consciousness, I felt humanity beginning to understand the true nature of existence. We weren't just perceiving reality, we were creating it, moment by moment, choice by choice. The quantum field hummed with unlimited potential, and we were all finally ready to explore it. The building where I had died in my previous life looked different now. The quantum field shimmered around its steel and glass structure, showing echoes of every timeline where that fatal fall had occurred. But this time, I wasn't here as a victim. I was here to end it. Project Phoenix's leadership had gone into hiding after their failed reset attempt, but I knew exactly where to find them. The quantum field showed me every possibility, every timeline where they'd tried to maintain control. They always returned to this building, to the office where my story had both ended and begun. Linda, James, and Marcus accompanied me through the lobby. Security guards saw us coming but made no move to stop us. They could feel the quantum field responding to our presence, reality itself stepping aside to let us pass. The elevator ride to the 45th floor was silent. Through our shared consciousness, I felt the others preparing themselves. Hannah and Jessica maintained a quantum link from headquarters, ready to stabilize any timeline fluctuations. The boardroom doors opened before we reached them. Inside, 12 men and women sat around a massive table. The true leaders of Project Phoenix, temporal sensitives who had manipulated reality for decades to maintain their power. We've been expecting you, their leader said. I recognized him from Elena's note. William Chen, Marcus's father. Though I must admit, this timeline has developed differently than we anticipated. You can't control it anymore, I said, feeling the quantum field pulse around us. Reality has evolved beyond your manipulation. William smiled, but I saw the strain in his expression. Evolution can be guided, shaped to serve a purpose. Humanity needs direction. No, Marcus stepped forward. That's what you never understood, Father. The quantum field isn't a tool to be controlled. It's consciousness itself evolving. Through our link, I felt the other guides worldwide monitoring the situation. The quantum field was active but stable, responding to the convergence of so many temporal sensitives in one location. We created you, William said to his son. All of you. Every death, every rebirth, every timeline shift was designed to produce the perfect temporal operators. But you failed, Linda interjected. Instead of creating controllers, you awakened guides. James moved to the boardroom's control panel, disabling their quantum dampeners. Reality rippled as the field fully manifested in the room. You feel it, don't you? I asked the board member. The true nature of what you've been fighting against. The quantum field isn't just connecting timelines, it's connecting consciousness itself. Several board members shifted uncomfortably as the full weight of quantum awareness pressed against their mind. They had spent so long trying to control reality that they'd never learned to flow with it. William stood, his form flickering between timelines. If we can't control it, then no one should. Initiate Protocol Omega. The quantum field screamed. Around the world, reality began to fracture as hidden Project Phoenix facilities activated simultaneously. They weren't trying to reset the timeline anymore, they were trying to shatter it completely. No. Marcus grabbed his father's arm. You'll destroy everything. I reached out through the quantum field, feeling the strain as reality tried to maintain cohesion. The other guides joined their consciousness with mine, creating a network of stability. Through our shared awareness, I finally understood. Project Phoenix's leaders weren't just afraid of losing control, they were afraid of what came next. The evolution of consciousness meant the end of their kind of power. Show them, I told the others. Through our combined abilities, we opened the board members' perception fully to the quantum field. They saw what we saw, the infinite possibility of existence, the beauty of reality as a living, conscious entity. They felt the connection that bound all timelines, all consciousness together. One by one, their resistance crumbled. The quantum field stabilized as they released their attempt to destroy it. William was the last to surrender. What have we done? He whispered, seeing something beautiful. Marcus told his father. Just not in the way you intended. Through the quantum link, I felt the changes rippling outward. The last barriers between timelines dissolved as humanity embraced its new state of existence. I walked to the window where I had died, pressing my hand against the glass. In the quantum field, I could see every version of that moment playing out simultaneously. But they were just possibilities now, paths that had led us here. What happens to us? One of the board members asked. The original temporal sensitives? You learn to guide instead of control, I said, like the rest of us. Linda's phone buzzed with updates from around the world. The quantum field had reached a new level of stability as the last of Project Phoenix's influence faded. James took my hand as we watched the sun set through the quantum shimmer of multiple timelines. Was this how you imagined it would end when you came back? I thought about that moment of signing the divorce paper, of planning my revenge. This is better than anything I could have imagined. Through our shared consciousness, I felt humanity stepping into its new role as active participants in reality's evolution. The quantum field hummed with the potential of infinite possibility, and we were all finally ready to explore it together. Marcus joined us at the window, watching the city shift through multiple timelines, ready to guide humanity into its next phase of evolution. I smiled, feeling the quantum field pulse with new awareness. The true work was just beginning, but this time, we would face it united across all possible timelines. The sun set on one phase of existence and rose on something entirely new. Reality itself had awakened, and we had awakened with it. 1 year after the quantum awakening, I stood in my new office overlooking a city transform. Reality shimmered with possibility as people moved through their daily lives, consciously aware of the timelines flowing around them. The divorce papers that had started my journey lay framed on my wall, a reminder of how far we'd come. Linda entered with the morning report. The global network of guides had expanded beyond our wildest expectation. Every major city now had temporal specialists helping people navigate their new awareness of quantum reality. The first generation of natural quantum sensitives is starting to emerge, she said, handing me a tablet. Children born after the awakening, they're showing abilities we never imagined possible. I scrolled through the data. These children didn't just perceive multiple timelines, they moved through them instinctively, as natural as breathing. James arrived for our morning briefing, still adjusting to his own growing sensitivity to the quantum field. After the convergence, many non-sensitives had begun developing abilities. Marcus just reported in from the European Quantum Center. They've made a breakthrough in timeline integration. The quantum link hummed with activity as I reached out to connect with Marcus. Through our shared consciousness, he showed me what they'd discovered. The barriers between possible realities weren't just dissolving, they were transforming into bridges. Hannah and Jessica joined the link from their respective facilities. We're seeing similar patterns in Asia and South America, Hannah reported. Reality itself is becoming more fluid, more responsive to conscious intention. William's team has confirmed it, Jessica added. Marcus's father and the other former Project Phoenix leaders had become valuable allies once they embraced their role as guides rather than controllers. The quantum field is entering a new phase of evolution. I felt it through our connection. The shimmering potential of existence was growing stronger, more coherent. Humanity wasn't just perceiving multiple timelines anymore, we were learning to compose them, like artists painting with possibility itself. Elena's notebook sat on my desk, its pages filled with observations that had helped us understand what we were becoming. She had seen it first, had died trying to protect this future. Now her vision was becoming reality. A quantum ripple caught my attention. Through the field, I felt a familiar presence attempting to manifest. Everyone, focus with me. Someone's trying to cross over. Our combined consciousness provided stability as the quantum field pulsed. Reality shifted, and Elena stepped through, alive and whole. The barriers are breaking down, she said, embracing me. All timelines, all possibilities are converging into a new kind of existence. The quantum field surged with joy as others began crossing over. Hannah Kim from another timeline where she'd died, Jessica Palmer from a reality where she'd discovered different aspects of quantum consciousness. Even previous versions of ourselves, each bringing their own unique perspective to the growing universal awareness. Linda's monitors lit up with quantum activity as similar convergences happened worldwide. The field is stabilizing at a higher frequency. Reality isn't just conscious anymore. It's becoming something entirely new. Through our shared perception, I felt humanity's response to this latest evolution. There was no fear this time, only wonder and acceptance. We had grown beyond the need for linear time and singular reality. James touched my hand, his consciousness now fully integrated with the quantum field. "Remember when you just wanted revenge for a bad divorce?" I laughed, the sound rippling through multiple timelines. "It seems so small now, doesn't it? All those personal grievances and petty plans." Marcus appeared in the doorway, his father beside him. Both men had changed profoundly since Project Phoenix's fall. "The quantum field is showing signs of further expansion," William reported. "This is just the beginning of what consciousness can become." Our network of guides worked together, helping smooth the transition as reality continued its transformation. The children born into this new existence would take it even further, their natural abilities already surpassing anything we had achieved. Elena studied the quantum readings with fascination. "When I first discovered the pattern, I never imagined it would lead to this. We're not just time travelers or reality guides anymore. We're becoming part of something vast and beautiful." The sun set and rose simultaneously across multiple timelines as we watched from my office. Each moment contained infinite possibility, each choice creating new branches of existence that we could now explore freely. The divorce papers on my wall caught the quantum light, shimmering with the weight of all the paths that had led here. What had begun as one woman's desire for revenge had blossomed into humanity's greatest evolution. Linda brought in reports of more convergences, more breakthroughs in quantum consciousness. Every day brought new discoveries as we learned to navigate our expanded existence. Through the quantum field, I felt the pulse of universal consciousness growing stronger. We were all connected now, not just to each other, but to reality itself. Every timeline, every possibility, every moment of existence woven together into a tapestry of infinite awareness. The future stretched before us, limitless and bright with potential. We had become something more than human, more than temporal sensitives or quantum guides. We had become conscious participants in reality's own evolution. And somewhere, in every timeline, a woman signed divorce papers and began a journey that would change everything. Reality shimmered with possibility as we stepped forward into our new existence, ready to explore whatever came next. The quantum field hummed with the music of infinite timelines, and we danced to its rhythm. Finally whole, finally awake, finally free. 10 years passed in the blink of a quantum moment. The Phoenix Foundation, built from the ashes of Project Phoenix, had become a global network dedicated to helping humanity navigate its new existence. In my office atop the renamed Quantum Tower, I reviewed reports from our newest generation of guides. The children we'd first observed after the awakening were now teenagers, their natural abilities transforming our understanding of reality. They moved through timelines like fish through water, their consciousness naturally attuned to the quantum field in ways we were still learning to comprehend. Linda, now director of global operations, brought in the morning briefing. Her hair had grayed, but her mind was sharper than ever in the quantum field. "The integration is accelerating. The barriers between possible realities are becoming more permeable every day." James looked up from his quantum terminal, his consciousness now fully evolved to perceive multiple timelines simultaneously. The European Center reports similar findings. Reality itself is becoming more responsive to collective consciousness. Marcus and his father William had established quantum research centers worldwide, working to understand the continuing evolution of human awareness. Through our shared consciousness, I felt their latest discovery rippling through the field. Elena, alive and thriving in this timeline, coordinated our educational programs. Her original insights had become the foundation for teaching new generations about their quantum nature. "The children are showing us possibilities we never imagined. They don't just perceive or guide timelines, still framed on my wall, feeling the weight of all the paths that had led here. What had begun as my personal vendetta had transformed into humanity's greatest journey." Hannah and Jessica managed our global network of temporal specialists, helping people integrate their expanding consciousness. "The quantum field is reaching a new threshold," Hannah reported through our link. "The distinction between observer and reality is dissolving." I felt it through our shared awareness. The shimmering potential of existence wasn't just something we perceived anymore, it was what we were. Consciousness and reality had become inseparable, each reflecting and creating the other. The Phoenix Foundation had established centers in every major city, offering guidance and support as humanity continued its transformation. Our original team had expanded into a vast network of awakened beings, each contributing to the collective evolution of consciousness. Linda's quantum monitors displayed the latest data from our global sensors. The field was stronger and more coherent than ever, humming with the combined awareness of billions of minds learning to navigate multiple realities simultaneously. Through our shared perception, I felt the presence of other versions of ourselves from across the timeline spectrum. The boundaries between different possibilities had become so thin that we could interact freely with our alternate selves, learning from each decision path. James approached my desk, his consciousness brushing against mine in the quantum field. "Do you ever think about how it all started? With those divorce papers and a desire for revenge?" I smiled, remembering the anger and fear that had driven me in those early days. It seems like another lifetime. So many versions of ourselves, all leading to this moment. The quantum field pulsed with new activity as another group of children manifested their ability. Each generation brought us closer to understanding what consciousness could truly become. Elena's original notebook had been digitized and integrated into the quantum network, its insights still guiding our understanding of reality's evolution. She had seen the pattern first, had died protecting this future in another timeline. Now she worked alongside us, helping shape the next phase of human development. Marcus appeared in my office, quantum shifting between multiple versions of himself as he delivered his latest research findings. "The field is showing signs of further expansion. Reality isn't just conscious anymore, it's creative." Through our network, I felt the truth of his word. Humanity had moved beyond simply perceiving or guiding timelines. We were learning to compose reality itself, like artists working with the raw material of existence. The Phoenix Foundation had grown into something far beyond its origins. What had started as Project Phoenix's attempt to control reality had blossomed into a global movement of awakened consciousness. Linda brought reports of new breakthroughs in quantum integration. The children born into this new existence were showing us possibilities we had never imagined. They moved through reality with natural grace, their consciousness naturally attuned to the quantum field. The sun set and rose across multiple timelines as we watched from my office. Each moment contained infinite possibility, each choice creating new branches of existence that we could now explore freely. Through our shared awareness, I felt the pulse of universal consciousness growing stronger. We were all connected now, not just to each other but to reality itself. Every timeline, every possibility, every moment of existence woven together into a tapestry of infinite awareness. The divorce papers caught the quantum light, shimmering with the weight of all the paths that had led here. What had begun as one woman's desire for revenge had blossomed into humanity's greatest evolution. Reality shimmered with possibility as we stepped forward into our new existence, ready to explore whatever came next. The quantum field hummed with the music of infinite timelines, and we danced to its rhythm, finally whole, finally awake, finally free. The Phoenix Foundation continued its work, guiding humanity toward its next phase of evolution. Each day brought new discoveries as we learned to navigate our expanded existence. The future stretched before us, limitless and bright with potential. We had become something more than human, more than temporal sensitives or quantum guides. We had become conscious participants in reality's own evolution. And somewhere, in every timeline, a woman signed divorce papers and began a journey that would change everything.